Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam. We are back on the road to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I want to thank Matt Wyatt for joining me to review Spider-Man from 2002, my personal favorite of the Spider-Man films that have been released. Link in the eye in the right-hand corner if you want to go check that out. And subscribe to Matt. He's awesome. But enough about that. Let us now get into the sequel and what many consider to be the best Spider-Man movie, regardless of cinematic universe or standalone, Spider-Man 2, released in 2004, directed by Sam Raimi. But first, I have to throw it to my podcast partner, Jacob Martin, because he's got a thing or two to say about this movie. So, Jacob, take it away.
Thank you, Ryan, for inviting me on your channel once again to talk about another movie for a collab series. You've invited me to discuss Spider-Man 2 for your road to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And thank you for asking me to be a part of this film because I love Spider-Man 2. This is my favorite live-action Spider-Man film. I think of all time, my favorite Spider-Man film, if we're counting it, is Into the Spider-Verse. But if we're just ranking the live-action Spider-Man films, Spider-Man 2 would be my all-time favorite. This was released in 2004, directed by Sam Raimi. By this point, I think we all know who Sam Raimi is. Directed the other Spider-Man films in the original trilogy. Most recently directed Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, and is also well known for the Evil Dead trilogy. And so he has an amazing range as a director. He can do horror films. He can do comic book films. He even made a good underrated Western at one point, which I highly recommend if you haven't seen it, The Quick and the Dead, which is an awesome movie. This film, once again, stars Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. And what I love the most about Spider-Man 2 is that, yeah, it's a superhero story. There's great action sequences in it. But that's not the focus of what makes Spider-Man 2 such a great movie. It's actually a character study. And I think that's what I admire the most about Spider-Man 2 is that, yeah, the action is there, but the action is also earned because of the story that takes place. As in the sequel, Peter Parker is struggling to balance his life between being the normal everyday Peter Parker, struggling to maintain a job, struggling to keep his grades up at school, alongside being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and the stress of that is causing his heart to not be in the right place, and he eventually loses a lot of his abilities along the way to the point where midway through the movie he ends up quitting, giving up the role of Spider-Man for a civilian life. And I really appreciate the focus on making it such a grounded character study, as I like how the movie dives deep into the duality of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Pretty much the blessings of having that ability, while also some of the negative cons of that, especially and how stressful the balance can be in having both roles, along with some of the personal conflicts that he's had along with that, particularly with his friend Harry, played by James Franco, who blames Spider-Man for the death of his father, and so the friendship between Peter Parker and Harry is on rocky grounds because of the contention that they have. And you also got Mary Jane Watson, played once again by Kirsten Dunst, who, you know, Peter still has the hots for her, but she's about to be engaged to the son of J.K. Simmons' character, my son, the astronaut. And yeah, there's a lot of contention in there that, you know, really messes with Peter's head to the point that, is it worth it to be Spider-Man when I can't enjoy the things I want to have? And you really see that throughout the course of the film. And I think it's fantastic the way it's done. It does feel like a compelling drama, but you still have Sam Raimi's direction. There's parts in the way the action is shot that is very gleefully campy at times, especially some of the acting of the extras, which make the film hilarious to watch at times. And even Sam Raimi, true craftsman of a director, even sneaks in horror elements in the story, particularly in the form of Doc Ock. The character Otto Octavius, played brilliantly by Alfred Molina, who they pretty much make a Frankenstein monster story with his character, where he's somebody that's intending to do stuff for the good of mankind, but his experiments backfire and ends up turning into the monster that he didn't want to be a part of. So it's almost like a tragic tale, a cautionary tale of be careful what you wish for. But going back to the horror elements with his character, there's a scene in the movie where these surgeons are trying to remove the mechanical arms off of Octavius' character while Alfred Molina is asleep. And then the arms go berserk and they kill off all the surgeons in a pretty, as far as PG-13 standards go, pretty gruesome style. And it almost feels like it came straight out, especially since there's chainsaws and stuff throughout the course of that scene. It's straight out of The Evil Dead almost. And I thought that was a brilliant callback. That it's kind of crazy that he snuck that in a Spider-Man movie, but I respect him all the more for it. Like I said, there's not as much action in Spider-Man 2 because this is more so a focus on character and story. But because of the character study we do have of Peter Parker, once we do get action, the movie greatly earns its action because of that. Particularly in the third act of the film, which is the most action-focused of the entire movie, where Peter Parker makes his final decisions on what to do as Spider-Man. And we get this amazing action sequence on top of a subway, which in my opinion is the best action scene still in any Spider-Man movie. Just the way the visual work in that film still holds up. The fight choreography is still good, and emotionally, I think it's a fantastic sequence. That Peter Parker still is willing to do whatever it takes to save the people that he loves in the place that he knows home. And there's a really powerful moment to where, in the process of saving the people, he loses his mask. And so the people on the subway see who Spider-Man is, and some of them are shocked at how young Spider-Man actually is. One of the people on the train says, he's no older than my son. And then I like the collective decision of the people on the train that they're not going to spoil or leak his identity, which I thought was a pretty powerful moment. There's a lot of stuff I love in this movie. The acting is great all across the board. Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, J.K. Simmons is hilarious. Rosemary Harris as Aunt May is still really good. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is the speech that she gives to Peter Parker about the hero and all of us. Is a powerful sequence that motivates Peter Parker to eventually return to being Spider-Man once again. And honestly, in that sequence, I honestly believe that Aunt May knew who Spider-Man was by that point, because Spider-Man did rescue her from Doc Ock during the bank heist. And Tobey Maguire doesn't disguise his voice as Spider-Man, so she probably put two and two together after that scene. That's how I've always took that. I think it's a great movie. In my opinion, the best Spider-Man film on the live action side of things, mainly because of its development of character. It's a beautiful character study on the duality of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, the highs and the lows. Sam Raimi makes it down to earth and relatable, which I really appreciate. Danny Elfman's score is fantastic once again. The action is there when it's there. And all around, it's one of the best comic book movies of all time. Yes, I love the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, but I feel like Spider-Man 2 takes the cake for the best film in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. And heck, I even enjoy the third Spider-Man movie. Yeah, it's flawed, but it's still pretty enjoyable too. Sam Raimi still had his creative stamp on all three movies, but in my opinion, the best of the best. of Raimi's films is Spider-Man 2. I'll be giving Spider-Man 2 a 5 out of 5 stars. And I'm going to go 100 out of 100 on Spider-Man 2. I think this is one of the top tier comic book movies in general, and definitely the best as far as live action Spider-Man movies are concerned. So thank you, Ryan, for inviting me on your channel once again. Just in case if you don't know who I am the co-host on Ryan Cam's channel, the Life in the Movies podcast. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm sure Ryan will leave a link in the description below. I mainly do movie reviews, more so live streams now as I've been bombarded. I'm a lot busier now being in school, but I do post occasional videos every once in a while, more so live streams. And I do a lot of fun content talking about movies. I'm starting to talk about music on my channel. So if you want to subscribe to my channel, feel free to do so. Thank you once again, Ryan, for having me on your channel. And I'll see you next time on the Life in the Movies podcast.
In the words of Kevin Nash from this 1996 promo,
"The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at it."
Spider-Man 2 pretty much burst the dam when it comes to quality superhero movies. Up until that point, superhero movies had been consistently getting better, with Spider-Man 2002. In 2 years previously, we got the first X-Men movie. But then in 2003, we got X2 X-Men United, which was widely praised and heavily financially successful. And then a year later, we got Spider-Man 2, and it seemed like Marvel was just clicking on all cylinders. And in many ways, Spider-Man 2 is the standard bearer for any Spider-Man movie. When a new one comes out, it is automatically compared to Spider-Man 2. It's a cosmic law at this point. And as I stated, I think my favorite of the movies has got to be the original. Can't beat a classic. However, Spider-Man 2 is one of the best sequels ever made, and honestly in the running for some of the best superhero content in a movie, period. It's fantastic. As Jacob mentioned in his portion of this review, Spider-Man 2 is not just an action movie. It's not just a superhero movie. Yes, there are elements of both of those genres very present throughout. And this movie has probably the best action scene in any Spider-Man film. The train scene. If you have not seen it, look it up. Even in a vacuum, it is epic. But this movie is more than that. It basically, like Jacob said, is a character study. It essentially puts Peter Parker under a microscope. Basically, Peter Parker is an ant, and there is a magnifying glass over him, and it's a red-hot summer day. Basically, Peter Parker's under a lot of stress. Not only the stress of Spider-Man, but also Peter Parker's life. Being there for his aunt, who is facing an eviction. Being there for Mary Jane, who, well, after the events of the last movie, they're pretty much, like, drifting apart ever more. Harry doesn't hate him, but is not exactly currying favor with him. There's a pretty sad scene where Harry pretty much punches Peter out. It's not fun. Basically, Harry wants a piece of Spider-Man really bad, but Peter either needs to have a really difficult conversation with Harry, or that conversation is going to be had for him. And, well, that conversation is had for him. Peter is struggling his school. He loses his job as a pizza delivery boy on the scooter. He kind of sucks at his job at the Daily Bugle. Pretty much, this movie's pretty much Murphy's Law. If anything can go wrong, it is. Oh, and just to compound all of that, we got a new villain in the form of Dr. Octavius, played by Alfred Molina. Firstly, though, the performances are all great. The returning ones, Tobey Maguire, James Franco, Kirsten Dunst, they're all great. Rosemary Harris is, of course, great as well. But then you have the new addition of Alfred Molina as Dr. Octavius. In my research, I found that actors that were in consideration to play this role included Ed Harris, and not gonna lie, I would have loved to have seen this, but I'm glad we got what we got with Alfred Molina. Christopher Walken. Yes, really. And I love Christopher Walken. Alfred Molina did a great job, but I would have loved to have seen it just for the dialogue, the Peter, shame on you. I'm just trying to bring back my wife.
This is not over!
That has nothing to do with Spider-Man. I just love that clip so much. What I love about the Raimi trilogy is that the villains are not just your standard mustache-twirling villains. They're rather complex. Dr. Octavius especially. You get the impression that he is not inherently a bad guy. It's just that the technology he creates pretty much fries his brain. Like the inhibitor chip breaks, and after a certain point, the chip breaking combined with the death of his wife in the accident in about 30-ish minutes into the film that basically creates the Dr. Octavius that we see throughout the film. Yeah, it's not exactly a cut and dry, as in this person is clearly a bad person and needs to be stopped. This person is damaged, yes. He does terrible things, yes. But he is also damaged. And the movie actually does a pretty good job of taking into account that if that inhibitor chip had not broken, then Dr. Octavius would still probably be, he would still be on the straight and narrow. But that combined with grief just makes for a potent combination. As I mentioned, probably the greatest action scene in this entire trilogy, if not in superhero movies in general, is the train scene. You know exactly the one I'm talking about, where after Spider-Man hangs up the suit, tries to go it alone, and puts some of his life back together, but realizes he has a bit of a higher calling, and that if he's not going to be Spider-Man, no one is. So he puts on the mask and goes back out there, only to stop a train with just 2 strings of web and just himself. And just the ability to stop that train from going over the edge, it's nerve-wracking. Like, it's nerve-wracking 21 years later. Wait. 19 years later. I'm bad at math. What makes that scene even better is after the train stops, he lets go, and you think he's going to fall, but then the people on the train catch him, and then they bring him back into the train, and they lay him down, and he's lost his mask by this point. So they all know that, they all know Peter Parker's face. And one of the train goers is like, he's just a kid. He's no older than my son. And it's just a great moment where Peter wakes up, he's like, uh-oh. And then a little kid just hands his mask to him. I think I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is this. I would put this in the camp of not just the greatest superhero sequel ever made, but one of the greatest sequels ever made, period. This is obviously getting an amazing grade. This is one of those movies that just doesn't get old, and as more superhero movie content gets released per year, it's kind of like a tide raising all ships thing, where this movie just gets better and better and better as the years go on. It's one of those movies that just does not age for me. If for some strange reason you have not seen this movie, do yourself a favor, watch it. You will not regret it. But as for this video, if you did like it, please be sure to leave a like. Thank you so much for watching, and comment your thoughts on Spider-Man 2 down below. I'd love to read what you have to say. Thank you to Jacob for talking some Spider-Man 2 with me. But now, along the road to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, we're going to be hitting a couple of bumps, especially in this one. And, well, I think I might as well title the video this, but next week, it will be my defense of one of the more divisive Spider-Man movies, if not the most divisive Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man 3.